is there some effort to align the region to the power at the center?
Well, we have to always make decisions that is in the best interest of the people that have entrusted us with their mandate. And in doing so, you have to look at first your states, your citizens, the people you have been elected to serve, and then of course by extension you have to look at the region, because again the Southeast, and you want to cast your mind back what has happened in the Fourth Republic. We've been largely under a homogeneous political party. We have never been so fragmented as we are in the last maybe 6 years. And then look at the event of the Third Republic. Again, we were also almost together. You had the NRC, you had His Excellency Okuslezi Mojo, who was the governor then in Enugu, by extension Ebonyi, because Enugu and Ebonyi at the time were together. And then we had, I guess it was Ebante in Imo, right? And then under NRC, we have Ogbonnia in Abia. Again, under NRC, I think the only outlier then was Anambra, who was an SDP. But, then come to the Fourth Republic, where we started off as all PDP, and we were able to talk about regional interests. Consolidate where that interest is, and then make a very strong case and be able to attract things that will benefit the region. And that has worked. I think, in my view, that if we even go back in time, our forebears, also played politics. They were always best interest of us, and they were always more than happy to have a handshake across the Niger if it was felt that it was in the best interest of the people. So I talk about how do we consolidate our support base, and so that we can make a case.
Are you saying that conversation hasn't held? Because you make it sound like it's a regional decision. Are we going to be having the same media chat in the neighboring cities soon?
I know I'm not going to speak for anyone now, but I'm saying to you that I am convinced that it's in our best interest as a region to begin to think about consolidation of platforms so that we can make a strong case for the region.
So you spoke about, learning from pragmatic politics. I listened to your declaration this morning, and you said that this move is bigger than politics, which was interesting because you're also celebrated widely as one of the best performing governors. You've delivered for your people. We see the change. We see the facelift under you. So it's interesting that you feel that under PDP, you have not been able to fulfill your mandate, so to speak, that you now have to jump over to a place that you think will give you room to do the good work that people already feel you're doing. So my question is this about the people? People are saying that this is just of political elites aligning themselves for what serves them best. Governor of Delta State moved across to APC. I interviewed Chief Bode George, and he used the term rudderless to describe PDP governors running away from their party instead of doing the work to restore the party. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a fair concern, and I imagine many people will feel that way. But we have to look at the deeper issue beyond looking at one party or another. It is looking at what enables you to serve the people optimally. And then you may have served your people. Yes, are we going to break the stride? No. Are we going to slow down on the progress we have made? What we're actually doing is going to a stronger platform that would enable us optimize, in fact, strengthen, build on what has been described as the 28 months wonder in Enugu State, making sure that development does not is not determined or should not be determined by the location of where anyone lives. That it doesn't matter where you are in the state, you should have access to quality education, which is responsible for why we're doing over 7,000 brand new classrooms, building 260 smart grade schools, making sure that location does not determine access to quality education.
So in essence, you want to make sure you can come back and do another term, so you're aligning with those who will give you another term to complete these projects optimally. Is that what you're saying?
I think what we're doing is that we are carrying the people's trust to a platform that will best serve them. It is not about personal ambition. It has nothing to do with me, because again, at the end of the day, it is about the people. Everything we have done has largely been driven. The first thing we said during our campaign for office was to say, look, we're going to deliver quality, people-centered governance, that everything will be about the people. And that has driven all the decisions we've made.
We saw the threat from Enugu State PDP over the status of the National Secretaryship of the PDP, that you may consider moving to another platform. Now that has happened. What would you say was the last straw that broke the camel's back? There were some overtures from the APC, for instance. The president was there some months back. Tongues were wagging there. So, were you forced off PDP, or did you voluntarily go based on reach outs from the APC?
I said to this earlier on when I said, look, when systems no longer deliver fairness or justice, then we have to make the hard choice, and that choice again must be predicated, on choosing accountability, okay? And without dwelling into what may have transpired in PDP, for me, it was felt that, when it mattered most, our voices were not heard in that regard, and I believe that, the system did not deliver fairness as we had, not just from the point of view of Enugu State, but even the region, because it was the voice of the Southeast that I represent at the time. But I guess again the deeper issue is something you raised in your question. The fact that the relationship, because ultimately it is not my allegiance is to the people of Enugu State, is not to the flag or the color or the symbol, primarily to the people of Enugu State. And when I was also thinking about moving, I was also considering leadership. And I identified the leadership in APC, the leadership of APC, His Excellency the President, his policies, his the bold and difficult choices he's made, the programs. I consider that in sync, the programs and the bold disruptive things we're doing here in Enugu. So for me, it was almost like a natural choice. And I'd like to also add that there hasn't been any coercion. This was a well thought and carefully considered, decision to make in the best.
Has that from your camp to the other? Because Uche Naji's fate, his spokesperson pointed fingers at government house to have been behind it because of this movement he said was expected. How that your interest, you are behind that brought him down?
I mean, I just cannot imagine how much more we can stretch our imagination, right? How we can, I think entertaining himself by those conjectures have a lot to think about, being behind. I think that the issue here is not about anybody. It is about a carefully considered decision to be able to ensure that we strengthen or build on in the best interests of Ndi Enugu. And, if I may add, if you look at the development model, and you want to also look at what we're doing here in Enugu State. For example, the Renewed Hope World Development Program. This is a program designed to empower over 8.8 million young Nigerians. So if you do the calculus, you notice that if you're having an intervention that would impact 1,000 young people from the 8,809 electoral wards that we have in the country, it means by extension there is a design to actually lift over 80 million people from the pit of poverty. Just think about it. If you're going to provide seed capital, empower one young person to either set up a cottage industry, go into agro-allied industrialization programs and all that, you are essentially getting another 10 persons out of that pit of poverty. And so that same model speaks to the things we do here, where our programs and our development is all inclusive, because we think about no section, no child, or no ward should be left out in our development program. When we build schools, we build it across the 260 electoral wards. We build the type 2 primary health care centers. They are being done across the 200. We are not doing farm estates, again, doing it across. And again, this is designed to upscale our production, so making our rural area productivity zones. That's essentially what we're doing. So there's quite a lot of synergy between what we're doing here and what is going on at the federal government. And so we're looking at it more like a bridge between Enugu and the federal government, and where our aspiration meets national opportunities.
All right, Your Excellency. What do you have to say to those who are disappointed? I mean, for over 20 years, PDP has enjoyed that dominance in the state, and also, rightly pointed out, you are moving to what was before now the key opposition. What do you have to say to who feel disappointed, who possibly feel betrayed, those who came out in numbers for you, and to those who don't accept it at all, as we've seen another faction made up of the former excos of the cabinet saying that they're going to continue with their duties regardless of the new exco. What do you have to say to those two concerns?
And that's the beauty of democracy, that there is that freedom of association. Again, I have said that this was never an easy decision. It is, the fact that the state has carried the banner of PDP with so much pride it would never be an easy, so nobody should pretend about it. But I think sometimes we have to defer to a higher principles and higher call. And that's essentially what we're doing here. It's almost like, my background is business, so I'm almost going to use business cases to illustrate. So it's almost like when you talk about the X curve of innovation. Notice you start from the era of ferment at the bottom of the X curve, and you get to the dominant design stage, and you get to a point where it gets to the physical discontinuity, just getting at the peak of it. So you've got to your dominant stage. You now only have marginal improvements. So you're no longer, for example, to quantum leap, launching, growing economy exponentially. You're getting to a point where you need to now create another X curve of innovation, where you need to think outside the box, knowing that even though the old system may have served us, it served us to get us to where we are today. In order for us to get innovation, we need to be able to identify that new system that is able to serve us up.
Would you let this new faction with your own, would you let the former, the now operate with that led by the caretaker committee chair, Dr. Ben Woye? Would you let them operate hand in hand? Would they both exist?
Party politics about bringing in people, right? And I think that the key thing is for us to understand we have to consolidate whichever party we are in, consolidate our support base. So the ultimate to reconcile the parties and make sure that we all work together for one, common objective.
Exactly in all of this, did you decide to defect to APC? What was that moment that you said with PDP anymore?
So a weighty decision would require deep reflection, introspection. It's not just wake up. You would have to do your analysis around what is in the best. President is that he's deeply committed to what is in the interest of things that we've been able to, as a state, so it's always going to be about what serves the best interest of the people. And again, as I said, by extension, the zone, the Southeast region.
It seems, the Excellency, this question is coming for the second time. That what was the event that was it the Udo Okoye event that made you feel that I've had enough, I've had it up to here? You decide that I'm done with the PDP, or you just took the ticket and you leave for the
about anyone. Again, I keep saying it was also not going, that decision would not have been made exclusive, would not, because it requires an entire policy, of course, make understand, you feel the pulse of your people and you get genuine feedback from them of what they also believe is in their best interest. So it's not just you thinking you're a leader, forcing your position on them, but listening to them, getting feedback from them, understanding how they feel about the whole thing. So this is a collective decision.
So it wasn't at any trying to reinforce my colleague's question.
Yeah.
It wasn't a particular event.
No.
Was it against you?
Again, it's
You had a meeting with the president,
it's-
a private meeting in the villa with the president. What did he tell you?
so as a governor, I would always have access to the president, and I would always have to discuss issues that affect the interest of the state with the president. And so I've not just had a one-off private meeting with.
Earlier in the year, he called you his friend, and that you were doing very well. Some have thought that perhaps the friendship is the foundation upon which this new relationship has been built.
No, I think that I enjoy a very good relationship with the president. There's no doubt about that. And for me, I think, if anything, that is also the, when I said this is beyond party politics. It's also about leadership. It's about who you find in a leadership position of a particular party. How comfortable you feel about that leadership, and the fact that you are looking at a leader who, for example, is interested in devolution of power, interested in decentralizing development, who believes that if we're going to achieve a $1 trillion economy in 5 years, by 2030, then the states, the peripherals, the suburbs must be empowered. Who sees that vision, that the growth we're talking about here won't be top down, it would rather be bottom up. Who believes in strengthening the capacity of the local government and even strengthening the institutions at the local level, traditional institution. I'm sure you know that the president is championing
So this move is much about personal chemistry as much as political realignment.
No, so if you think about it, look at the of this government and look at what they are designed to do. For example, if you look at the removal of subsidies and the unification of the foreign exchange markets, and of course dealing with certain other inefficiencies, they're again designed to free up resources that would be invested in the people. For example, I fell in love with this president from the day he made the move the fuel subsidy and unified the foreign exchange market. Essentially because, given my background as also somebody who played in that sector, I had also a lot in the past done features on why it had become necessary for the subsidy to go.
Your Excellency, just apologies. So I know you very well, and I know just how brainy and very intellectual you are. Moderator, I've not asked my question, but I'm just wondering, and I'm some of the questions, how you have parried them, and the political questions, and how you've dodged the bullet in not answering them. I have my question, but I'm still worried as to the fact that you are politically dodged away from the answer. I know a lot of people are watching, Enugu people are watching, home and abroad. What my colleagues are trying to center on is they want to know who really convinced you about leaving the PDP. And I'm coming to my own question. It has come in different shapes.
So if you want to know about how we became convinced, and I'll always elect to use a collective pronoun because it's not a unilateral decision.
But you are the leader.
I take full responsibility, but I'm also saying that it required an extensive consultation with the people that have entrusted us with their mandate to serve them. So we needed to engage to also understand how they felt about everything going on in the polity. So it is not one isolated event.
It's doing the case show. You better ask him.
Your Excellency, I have a question.
Let me, before you come in, on the people, because he talked about consultations. Now, within the 3 states now under the APC, one under ABGA, one under Labour Party. So you can say, make a call, Southeast is APC for structure. Now, the people deep down in their psyche, what we get out there is that APC is still to a reasonable extent alien to them. Now you have a lot of convincing to do to the people beyond the structures. How are you going to do that?
Because even at the time when PDP was holding 23, it was Labour Party who had the numbers during the election.
So I think everything you have said supports the fact that our people are essentially interested not necessarily on what the color you have on a banner. They are interested in being served and being served well. So if you will, good governance. What is gaining traction in our literature. Are interested in policies, in programs, and in how a government can serve them well. And that is above every other coloration, whether it's, a symbol that is umbrella or broom and all that. What matters most to our people, when we talk about migrating to a stronger platform that would give us that opportunity, where indeed our aspiration can connect the opportunities available at the national level. In the last 10 years, where we have, essentially been so fragmented, where we have not quite, the parties in the Southeast have not quite connected with the party at the center. We also know, in terms of development, that it hasn't been quite the same as when we were connected as PDP with the center in the last over the 16 years that PDP held sway. So it's a function of identifying that platform that you serve the people optimally. And I think it's extremely important that this is beyond self, it's beyond personal interest. It's about the people.
My question is about the impact of your political decision. And I said it's about it, but short one. The first is, do you feel this is of the PDP that gave you the ticket?
No. And again, I understand why you asked that. And it's a fair concern, but this is not like a betrayal. It is also not abandonment. It is more about thinking I was entrusted with the people's mandate by a people, right? And it is also now incumbent on me carrying that same mandate, that same trust, on a platform that would best serve the people. So think about this. We have a people who, under a particular platform, gave me their mandates to lead them. And then the same people, okay, it became clear to us that a platform on which that mandate was given may not serve us optimally. And then, in consultation with them, we decided that we're now going to migrate to a stronger platform that would best serve them.
Yes.
So I don't see that as a betrayal.
The other question is, PDP sent you to school, you graduated, and you are now taking the certificate of APC. And so that's where the betrayal question. PDP sponsored you. PDP took your hand to the people. PDP gave you the victory. You won. After tasting power, you abandoned the ship and you APC. Does that not sound like some kind of betrayal? Do you have an apology to make to the people who thought that you could represent them?
So, Sherry, I understand the analogy you just, but I think that analogy seems to suggest or seems to elevate the party above the people, right? I think that's the point that I'm trying to get you to understand.
So you're not worried about a possible punishment at the board.
No, so the
next time around.
So if this was against the interest, if this move would discontinue or affect the continuity of progress that we have witnessed in Enugu, or if indeed it is about self, then of course you'll be thinking about this, or your analogy may fit. But this is a lot more about the people first, before the party.
So, speaking of the people first, I mean, I've been listening to you very intently, especially because you continue to reinforce the idea that support of the APC's reforms, you like what the APC is doing and you want to take part in that, which is interesting to me because if you look at the statistics from the world, numbers in Nigeria have increased. We now have 139 million people who are living on about 3,000 naira per day, which is considered the poverty level globally. You look at the number, generally we all know that the quality of life has deteriorated in the past couple of years. So my question is, some people might feel this is the time for opposition to speak up and do its work. This is the time that opposition should be proud to come up with solutions that can bring succor to people. But instead, we're seeing Enugu State saying, we want to partake in this hunger with the rest of the nation. We want in these reforms that, yes, there are some benefits here and there, but because we're saying people first, the pockets is reigning. Empty pockets pandemic is currently reigning. What do you say to your people who say, we thought you would stand up for us and be a voice for us at a time where we are hungry?
Okay, so let me be clear. I think that the policies and the programs of the federal government yielding results, and albeit, maybe not at the pace we want it, but think about it, just to where we started before some very difficult decisions were made. And then I would also take you maybe perhaps to that were perhaps at the level we were in terms of our macro indicators. I mean, we were almost at 6 points in terms of our financial sustainability. If you look at the policies we operated under of the subsidies, we were getting to a point, if you back in 2001 during the financial crisis in Argentina, when the peso was being basically controlled against the dollar, which again of course led to what took close to a financial crisis in Argentina. It got to a point where it was unsustainable, and then of course,
absolutely.
And then of course, there was.
From an economic perspective, I totally understand.
No, but come back to how would percolate to the micro. But first, to deal with these matters fundamentally, you have to add macro shocks, right? You have to be able to stabilize your foreign exchange. You must be able to ensure that you have enough funds to do so, and it's not just artificial stabilization. With the fundamentals, you have to look at, again, what are those policies that enable you. Working with the subsidies, in my view, was largely just benefiting, the rich ones, because again, the subsidies we were talking about then was not even extended to diesel, which was what we operated our mass transit vehicles on. And then, we're talking about gasoline and all that. My take is that what we have seen happened over the last 2 years or so is that we have now achieved some macro levels. We're now beginning to see some stability in the macro indicators. We now have a foreign exchange that got at some point, I think, at some point last year, it was going to hit close to 2,000.
Yes.
Today we're seeing it at a level of 1,450, 1,460. And then look at again the inflationary trend. We're seeing that trending downwardly, right? At some point it got to 34.8%. So you can argue that the percolation, may not be going at the pace we're dealing with at the macro level, with the fundamentals. And if we don't get those macro level fundamentals right, we will not see a percolation to the micro level, where you're talking about household employment. But that would happen. I just picked one program of the government, and I can talk about a number of, talking about the Renewed Hope World Development Program. If that program is close to 90 million out of the pit of poverty, and this can happen within a year. We have the NEL Fund, where parents are, if you will, now have them need to have funds to pay fees of their kids. That loan is provided without interest. Okay, you have the Murphy. I think this is on the mortgage under the Ministry of Finance mortgage program, where the government create also access to.
Just for a moment, let's take Nathalie's question. And
thank you, Your Excellency. You have of the president, but we have to also establish one thing: it's just a party. As a matter of fact, some people who are campaigning in various states have said things like, "You have to be connected to the center. Development would come to your state." That's all they say. So essentially, these people are kind of the fact that it's more than just a party. In fact, it's an entire movement. So would you argue against it, or would you support the assertion? What is your of the perception of APC in the Southeast, not just the state, and why should Ndienugu accept APC?
So we're not moving to APC from a place of fear or resentment. For me, I see it more like a partnership. We're not moving in as supplicants. We believe that this is a partnership that would benefit Ndienugu, and it has, if you look at it from a broader angle, it's the political capital in the Southeast. And we talk about creating an aviation hub. Some of the things that would enable to that preeminent position she had always occupied would be driven by the federal government programs and projects, because a number of those things are still within the exclusive. And so you need to be able to ensure that you negotiate, not just even as a state, but as the Southeast. We're talking about building a huge energy market in the Southeast, developing our gas infrastructure. That won't happen because I can't legislate within the exclusive list. So there's a huge benefit in the Southeast. It's also come to that point where we must end fragmented politics in the Southeast. We must come together as a people and be able to negotiate in what is in the best interest of the Southeast.
All right, sorry. We need to take a break. Let's take a breather, everyone. We see here, we're talking a lot of politics because the politics of Enugu State, as decisions that are made today, will impact on governance, and the man right in the middle of things is Governor Peter Mbah. We'll be right back to discuss more after this break, everyone. To the live with the governor of Enugu State, Governor Peter Mbah, with my colleagues, Mbah of Arise Television, Amechi of the AIT, Natalie Oko of Afia TV, and Television Continental. My name is Sean Wakimale. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get back to it. It doesn't look like we're not done with some of the political questions. We'll take some rounds of it. Let's be
Your Excellency, traditionally they say a defecting governor is usually handed over the party structure 60 to 40% ratio. In your case, we saw the executive committee dissolved before, and there is the few who have tried to talk with the APC, those who stood with the party even when it had just 1% of the votes in the presidential election in Enugu in 2023. What do you say to them? Would you honestly say this is a defection of merger or a complete takeover?
Well, so we've just moved into a partnership, as I've referred to it in the past, and the issue of constituting a caretaker committee is essentially to address a lingering challenge that bedeviled the party here in Enugu State. So there had always been an existing court order to actually dissolve the executive that was finally dissolved. So the party bifurcated here. There were quite a lot of factions, and what we are going to do is essentially to bring everybody together, because ultimately we have to work with the people. We need the people to be able, this is all about the people ultimately, so you don't want to exclude anyone. So I believe that one of the first things we're going to immediately do is to set up a committee, a reconciliation committee, to make sure we reconcile all the warring parties and bring everybody,
So you'll be campaigning for President Bola Tinubu in 2027?
certainly I think it would be a sin for any governor not to do. And I say that again because we haven't really, as governors, seen a president, and I'm speaking from having also been in the politics now, of course, I had a stint in the public sector where I also was a commissioner for finance, so I was to know what accrued to the government from the federation account. So looking at the policy, this president who has ensured that he frees up resources, who understands that the $1 trillion economy cannot be realized without strengthening the subnationals. So, and that in freeing up the resources, you're able to invest, you're able to get the development to trickle down to our grassroots, to our weakest link. And that is what the president has done. He has largely, I hear, of course, that, of course, is the federation, and it's not, but, he could also have decided, oh, let's create a pool, and then decide what program or what project that SS fund could be used on, which in the past. But here we are having a to the subnationals, to the local government, so that they can actually touch the people. That money can be down to the local government, to the state. And so, for me, I see that as the only avenue for us to be able to achieve this $1 trillion economy. And there is also you have a president in the current president who believes that he doesn't want to hold so tight to power. You can see some of his support. He's now supporting the state police, as you know. That's again saying, look, let's ensure that we strengthen subnationals, we strengthen our peripheral. And so I will definitely...
Just a follow-up. Now you're closer to the president. There's this clamor for Nnamdi Kanu. Will you consider raising it with him? You're closer to him now.
Well, you've always known my position about Nnamdi Kanu. That hasn't changed. It took less than, I think it was barely a week after I assumed office, that I had a meeting with the president and I was very specific when I came out to address the press that I also raised the issue of Kanu with the president. Yes, so I believe strongly that the Nnamdi Kanu's problem is going to be solved politically. And with this now, I think it is also an opportunity for us in the Southeast to consolidate our position and make a case for this to be resolved.
Your definition of political solution. It needs to be, there is a protest that is being, people are preparing a nationwide protest for its release. And that Kanu's name did not appear on the clemency list of over 100 people, almost 178 or so, that made the prerogative of mercy from the office of the president. Were you also surprised that Nnamdi Kanu did not make it? So what's the definition of political solution?
So first of all, we need to accept that concept that this is the right thing to do. Details of implementation would need to be worked out because there would be certainly, and it is not things that you can possibly outline now, but it's for us to even accept the concept that this is the way to move forward.
All right. Let me just try to ask this question. Now, who, like I asked before the break, some people have this perception in the Southeast. How would you describe this perception? What is your understanding of the current view of APC in the Southeast? a region that has complained of marginalization. Yes, that on one side. And I need you to please answer me specifically. Then the second question is, what do you have to say to those people who have watched you for over 2 years and have seen the commendable strides that you've made, all of it feel that you may be making a big mistake?
So for Ndi Enugu, which would always remain my primary in all of it, I want to assure them that the way this decision will impact or touch their lives is not just going to continue, but the development we have, the strides accomplished, that stride will not be broken. We will not, this movement will not break the stride. It is going to enforce it. And again, I think that, you know, the perception is going to be driven largely by what our people see going forward. Now, if you're able to demonstrate with this movement that you progress you're carrying out in Enugu, or you're strengthening that, you're actually accelerating that because of this partnership, then that perception will automatically change, and you will have the people be the ones carrying the banner everywhere, and that's what I see.
All right. Very quickly, sir, I know you want to move on to governance. I find it quite intriguing. You spoke about power devolution being, some of the things that excite you about some of what we're seeing from the center at the moment. However, on the side of that conversation, there's also talk of Nigeria becoming a one-party state. We're already seeing almost a supermajority in the Senate. We've almost reached 2/3 majority with APC. The House of Reps is following closely. The governors are now completing the task of turning Nigeria potentially into a one-party state. How do you feel about the fact that when the history books are written, your name will be listed along those who endorsed the movement towards a one-party state in Nigeria?
Okay, first, we're not operating a one-party state as yet, and what I think I would like when the history is rendered for posterity to remember me for, is that I was one of those who believed in a policy, in programs and in projects that touched lives, and I moved to support those policies and programs and projects. I believe strongly that the current president and his programs and policies, if we keep the course, that it will percolate to the micro level.
Are those more important than a multi-party democracy?
So frankly, if you even talk about multi-party and single party by saying, oh, the multi-party is single party is bad, it's not black and white. You have to talk about leadership and the quality of the leadership and how that leader is focused and all that.
So you're okay with the one-party state?
No, so the you have people coming together to coalesce, to form coalition, to still criticize government and try to put the government on its toe, which is a good thing. I think you're going to see a build-up of that as we get into the elections, and that's not where we're drifting to. But I still believe that I'd like to be counted among those governors to support policies that touch the lives of our people.
Let's wrap up quickly on politics and move to governance. And the way to wrap it up would be to ask you, that you're looking like one of those governors who want to hold the control of two parties in their state. And on one PDP with your right leg, you have officially moved to the APC. And there's a feeling that you still hold the structure of the PDP and you still hold the structure of the APC. Invariably, what they say you have done is that you have secured your second term, because there is no opposition like the to threaten your re-election. It does look like you have secured for yourself an easy comeback for a re-election. Is that what you have done? Is there a mathematical game there?
So I've always talked about the renewal of my mandate as a choice by the people. I've never taken it for granted. And I don't think it is going to happen because you have one color of flag behind you against another color. It is going to happen if the people believe that you have performed on your social contract with them. So part of what we did when we got into office was to execute Citizens Charter, where we outlined clearly to the people, the promises we made to the people. I'm sure by the back to them to ask for the renewal of their mandates, they're going to have to look at that contract boxes and, you know, find out whether we've kept to our own part of that bargain. So for me, what secures your mandate is, you know, keeping to your own part of the bargain, keeping to your own part of that contract.
So why are you not letting go the PDP structure?
I am not
APC or APC PDP.
So if I turn back, yeah, I don't see any other flag.
That flag in your bedroom. Which is that of
there are some states, yes, where this happen. You know, this mention is there in defections. That in some states in the southern part of the country, there's this huge. I wouldn't raise the name because of it's still an allegation, but we see, and we see they do keep it as part of a strategy to whittle PDP down. Now, it's an opportunity for you to state clearly, to do it or not.
So for me, and it would be unfair to do so. I understand concern by some people. What my focus is, and I keep saying this because it's a mission I believe I am on, that whatever you do must on the people. Going to, again, you know my background. You know, I have one of the things you can take for granted when is that I cut straight. You've observed that during this period of interview. We are a party, and we're going to promote that party in the state.
Can you tell the people today that you don't have anything to do with the PDP? It's bygone and bye-bye forever.
And I'm even surprised that, including Sean, you're also still, you know, entertaining yourselves with these thoughts and stretching your imaginations, you know.
To put it in a better perspective, the PDP is no longer the major challenge for Governor Mbah.
Yes.
Because in the last election, it was the Labour Party. And the difference between both
the presidential election.
I am referring to the governorship election.
Okay.
You know, with 4,000 votes over the Labour Party. So if you have left the PDP, the big question will be, are you going to be able to get a lot of support to battle the presence of the Labour Party in the Enugu come 2027?
Well, I think it may interest you to know that we now work as we, even with the
immediate movement.
the candidate that I contested against at the Labour Party, we now work together as
So you
one
captured the state.
But rather than say, you would say, look, we believe that I can see some shared purpose here. I can see some shared, if you're by something and you're able to identify the same theory that by, I think the natural thing is to say, look, let's work together. This lot had fallen on me, I would have done what you're doing. I think we should.
Let's not entertain the temptation of not going to government. Please.
No, we're going back from here.
Maybe the last of
How do you?
Yeah, quickly, please.
I will be very. How do you intend to cope with the current stakeholders in the All Progressives Congress? Those who consider themselves the you're coming in and you're coming in as the newbie, the new person, joining them. All the attention is on Enugu. How would you cope with those people who consider themselves stakeholders? Do you anticipate politics?
No, so frankly, the party has a policy where, you don't consider anybody who has identified with the party as new, as coming in now, and that to treat everyone as equal.
So the Southeast.
That will be the decision that will be made by the party at the congresses, right? There is going to be the congresses which should happen sometime either in November or December, and it is at the congresses that the leadership at the world level, the state level, the zonal level would emerge, and it will be decided.
Do you hope to lead?
So when you talk about leadership, I thought you were talking about the various arms of the party. Who leads, for example, the world executive, who becomes the chairman. Executive.
He's asking who is now the face of APC.
No, the leader.
Is it Governor Chile? Senator?
No, so I think the governor is the leader of the party in the
APC leader in
certainly, yes.
All right, let's quickly move from to governance. I was curious to ask, is Governor Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi in on this?
I thought you were here when the announcement was made.
No, but the people are listening now. If you can reiterate.
Oh no, you were all here. You saw him right here.
So he's an APC man too. Let me take the phone. Start with what a lot of people know. What carries the emblem, the name, and the flag of Enugu beyond, and that's Enugu Air. You're a businessman. How would you explain the calculation of how you are using the money of Enugu State? What is the business defense for your decision? Is it because of a popularity contest that other states are foreign to? Or business-wise, what are the numbers? How much have you spent? What are your projections? 50th year of one for the people of Enugu State. Economically, is it viable?
Thank you very much. You alluded to the fact that I'm a businessman, and you're very correct. So you would imagine that I would have crunched the numbers, delve into it if it didn't make sense. So numbers, and we also looked at the benefits for the state, so the bigger picture. But I'm actually very pleased to, and this announcement we had actually made during where we said to our people, look, the projections we had, we were quite pessimistic, because truly when you run your numbers, you have three scenarios. You have your pessimistic position, you have your base position, and you have your optimistic position. So going to the financial model,
it would seem like it would take us like 6 months before we begin to remove our subvention and allow the airline to operate on its own. But I've announced to the people of Enugu that we actually beat that threshold, that benchmark, because we didn't have to assess from anywhere else. It seems like, you know, we had made a projection that our load factor would be about 40% within the first 3 to 6 months. But when we did our numbers in our first month, the report was over 75% load factor. So we didn't have to come back to the states to support anything. So the airliners today is self-sustaining and in fact rendering returns to the government. So we're not, you know, it's a fantastic business, which is why we're increasing our fleets. We're going to add additional 6 fleets, 6 aircrafts by the end of the year.
Are we going regional?
Okay. Yeah, we've received approval to do regional flights.
Sorry, let me just come with the issue of governance. I looked at the last figure of generated revenue for states, and 180 billion last year under review. That's a huge split. You also alluded to the more money coming from the center. Everybody knows, my colleagues have also made allusions to it, the beautiful work you're doing. But out there on the streets, I get the cry, oh, the taxes are becoming heavy. The burden is becoming overbearing. So how will you IGR development project welfare and well-being of the ordinary folks?
I've had to address this question on a number of fora where I engaged meetings. So we increase our internally generated revenue. It's not to increase the tax rate. What we've essentially done is to expand the tax net. So we've brought in people who before now didn't have to pay tax, or perhaps it wasn't enforced. We've now brought them into the tax net, and because it was something they never did, it's beginning now to sound like, you know, you're over people. No, I try to explain that the tax matters actually on the exclusive legislative list. The state cannot legislate on PIT. We cannot legislate on CIT. That's the personal income tax, the company income tax, VAT. These are all matters that are within the exclusive and recently you followed the tax reform bill, which was signed into law, so it's now the Tax Reform Act coming into effect by January 1st. Again, that's within the preserve of the National Assembly. They legislate on those taxes. Now, if you come to things like rates and maybe even taxes on small businesses and fees and all those market rates and what have you. The interesting thing, part of what we're going to do, we're going to set up a committee that, because I've heard this severally, I've been able to, you know, interrogate my IRS chairman to find out what is going on. He's told me, look, what we have actually done is below what, you know, used to be collected, because before we came in, those taxes were collected by non-state actors. You have people walking to the market. We came in with all that process, so no payment is made in cash. You must pay only to government account through e-payment. Even the sector, we also ensured even those driving keke and motorbike, nobody pays government payments by cash. You have to pay straight payment. And so he is saying one thing, and I'm hearing some like what you've said. And so I've decided I'm going to constitute a committee, have the market women in that committee, have the NGO, the civil society organization. Let them come up with a report, do a review and then come back to me with a report and say, look, this is our finding, and then we can address it. There are also some of the things we won't even be able to do from January, because if you're an SME and you're earning less than 1.5 million, we cannot tax you. You can't tax you can't get done by the state. It's done by, it's a law that is made by the federal government.
All right, let's reorder it.
Okay,
So,
all right, should we come back around?
Yeah.
Let's talk smart. Fantastic initiative. If you look at it just off the surface, and the fact that a number of them were completed successfully, I believe as well, the majority of them, I think, is something that we need to celebrate and acknowledge. However, having said that, I read a comment made by a Chief Ray Naji, who was saying that in some of your dealings in executing these projects and this development, that you've sidelined some Ndienugu who would have been fully capable to deliver these projects in a professional and transparent way, that you brought some contractors from outside. Of course, we know how that case ended. So I'd love for you to address what you're being accused of some type of cronyism with regards to specifically the Smart School project, and then what's the status of that contract with Sijubomi Ogundele? Have we been able to clean that up? Is that school being built? Have the funds been returned? Give us an update on what's going on with the smart schools, and also respond to this comment from Chief Rain Naji, who's saying that you've sidelined the people who stood with you in 2023, and you're awarding contracts to, you brought Suji Moto, who's now come and caused this mess, when Ndienugu could have done the project and completed it successfully.
So that won't be, I understand the concern of Ray Naji, and perhaps you may also have maybe few people who feel that way. But I don't think it's an accurate characterization here. In fact, if anything, if you look at the number of contractors we have in the Smart School projects, there are over 80% Enugu's citizens, people from the states or people who live here. Okay, so we're quite objective. Our selection process, we knew we had a very tight deadline in terms of project execution. We're thinking about those contractors that would be able to deliver on fast track, because you have to have the skills, you have the resources in order for you to deliver on fast track projects. It's unlike your conventional delivery. And so we identified maybe 1, 2, 3 contractors that would be able, and through a very competitive bidding process, emerged. And then we engaged them. But again, if you look at the large percent, and I'm talking about over 80%, and I challenge anyone who is interested to probe further and get facts, and we can also, we can publish the list of we have for the smart. You'll find out that over 80% of them are people from the states, people who are here. So in terms of the process, we are also very diligent, but a project of this scale, there's no doubt that sometimes, no matter how, no matter the level of due diligence you may have carried out, something may still go wrong. Important with the institutions, and that is able to help us ensure that none of the state is gone without being recovered. So that process is we issue of recovery is what we're dealing with now.
Have you covered anything?
I know some funds have started coming in.
Funds have started
coming in, and I have no doubt the way the case is being managed by the EFCC, that the state will fully recover all the funds that is due to the state.
I would like to follow up on the issues in the education sector. Your smart schools are widely, talked about, and the tech-driven curriculum happening within the walls. But there's the issue with the private sector. A video of a 3-year-old girl, I don't know if you've seen it, was allegedly flogged by her teacher. And, analysts, that video has sparked a lot of outrage nationally. And stakeholders are saying that it's a disturbing reflection of weak oversight happening in the private school sector, across the country. How do you specifically respond to that incident? And what are you doing to ensure that there are measures to strengthen regulation, to standardize practice and operations in the private sector?
Very good. I'm glad you brought that up. So we have, and I think what you now hear these days is that we're over-regulating. And you would also notice that quite a lot of the private schools are now using the public school that we are building as an index, as an indicator. So we've raised that bar, we've raised the standard. What happened with the 3-year-old is unfortunate. So you can be sure that we have also taken the right steps to ensure that the proprietor and the teacher, the particular teacher in question, is brought to justice. And so we have zero tolerance for such things. Education is by far one sector that is the be-all and end-all for us. It takes 33.3% of our total state budget. So you can imagine that, for every 1 naira we spend, 33 naira goes to education. So it's one sector we don't joke with. There are quite a lot of reforms we've carried out with respect to the regulatory activities of the state, regulating the private schools.
For that particular incident, I'm not sure seen any government reaction officially.
Taking actions. It's not even just reacting on the pages of newspapers, but we've taken, both the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Children have been involved in that matter.
And we're sure it won't happen again.
Of course, if you understand the consequences, and some of it, because again it's a process, at the end of the day there would be consequences, and when people will know that it is not something you can do and get it.
Let's talk funding. Now, during a review on the morning show at Apia TV, I was a bit taken aback, pretty much surprised. One of our guests said that a lot of the funding for the developments in the state have come from Abuja, from the national. And it made me think about the internal revenue drive of the state. I wondered, is it that the state's revenue to fund these projects? Are a lot of these projects funded by the national?
So I don't understand. We have several receipts. We have several revenue sources. And of course, one of the major revenue sources is the Federal Account Allocation Committee, which Enugu is part of, and we should get that receipt. Of course, what we have seen in recent time is that that receipt has increased, and we get it. We're entitled to it. But that does not derogate from the fact that we also mobilize domestic revenue. We've increased our IGR. They all are. I cannot say, look, because we have domestic, we shouldn't get funds from Abuja. It's just, okay, it's what we're entitled to. And when you look at our budget, we captured all these revenue sources accurately. The receipts from Abuja, what we project to get from our internal source, and all that.
I don't know the sort of cooperation we are seeing within the governors of the 5 states in the Southeast. Because of your plans, I read of, to build an internal rail system within Enugu. Ordinarily, would have been so a form of cooperation among the Southeast states. Speak to this cooperation as against your plan for that rail project. Where are we now with?
As you know, I've always advocated that we should build a common market in the Southeast because of our homogeneity, because of the fact that we have a very small area with densely populated people. We have 27,000, maybe 28,000 square kilometers of land mass, and we have up to 27 million people residing within the same, and we're talking about a land mass the size of Benue or Oyo, and yet you have these densely populated people. And so I've always believed that we have to have a plan that enables our people to commute from one city to the other, and that way you can attract huge investment. People will not be looking at Enugu as a market or Anambra as a market, but they look at the Southeast as, and so they can, when they make their investment decision in terms of their market analysis, the market size will not just be restricted to a state. And what a common market to take place is the ease of movement. If you're able to build multimodal transportation system and people are able to commute from one city to the other with ease, that obviously, and I'm glad that this move is being made and we're consolidating, at least from the party point of view. I mentioned before, we're at least addressing that. It is my hope that to bring us back to the table where we can go back and start thinking about this common market.
Oh, certainly. We're getting to the home stretch now, so I have a feeling that I don't know how much of the governors they feel about what the policies of government and what they do in office will impact on the poorest of the poor. You take the average and you look at the number of that cadre of the society, you perhaps will that there are much more. Now you talk about and how you're trying to digitize it to ensure that you're plugging the leakage. But the word on the street is that to the poor, that the little they have, they're taking a lot from them. You say you're doing a lot of. Is Peter and Mbah really a poor man or the rich man's governor? What are the people-oriented projects? And what confidence will the poor people who are watching right now, a translation into Igbo language, that they are not going to be taken out of existence because of your taxation policy?
So when we campaigned for office, we outlined a blueprint for Enugu State. And that blueprint was based on 3 critical factors. The first one was to build the economy exponentially, grow the economy from $4.4 billion to $30 billion in 8 years. The second is to eradicate poverty, to reduce our poverty headcount rates to 0. And then the third is to make Enugu State the #1 destination for living, for tourism, for business and investment. So what are these 3? None is mutually, they're not mutually exclusive. They are mutually reinforcing. they reinforce. So we could have stopped at saying we want to grow the economy and focus on that. But we didn't want to grow the economy at the expense of our common humanity, which was why we went back to say, look, we would eradicate poverty in 8 years. We achieve 0 headcount rates. That also now leads us to developing people-oriented projects. So if you look at the projects we do in the States, none is elitist. They are all designed to touch the grassroots. So we could have addressed the issue of marginally, identify 3 zones where we site the smart school, and it will be an exclusive preserve of the the wealthy ones. But we didn't do that. We decided that every child in this state must have access to quality learning. And the same thing with the healthcare. Every child must have access to quality healthcare. And we went about that. And we're doing the same thing in other areas. Portable, we have over 127 communities. We're currently building potable waters, boreholes, having different water schemes, also toilets, because we want to achieve on those elements. What are those and projects into our weakest link, making sure we lift them out of poverty? We're also empowering our SMEs. So the idea of over-taxation is, I have said, we're going to constitute a, so that it is not just, let me say this, sometimes people take politics to a different level. When we took the decision to analyze some of these leakages, that some people, there were some entrenched interests that we displaced. And make no mistake, they're not going to go down without. So we believe that there is this narrative that is being framed, that is not right, but rather than just take my word for it, let's even have our market people, our civil society, come and do a full review of this taxation issue and give us a report, point out to us wrong. And I'm more than happy to address that. And that's what my citizen charter.
All right. Final question, because we're right at the end of it.
Very short. Firstly, it sounds like you're going to be very busy. You're creating a lot of committees for different issues. Electricity, that's pivotal to everything, whether it's lifting people out of poverty, productivity, generating IGR, and so forth. It was formidable to see the state initiative to test the new electricity prices, take the regulatory stance into their own hands, and it's unfortunate block that then followed with the distributor following that, and I understand it continues. This issue hasn't been ironed out. How do you think this very critical issue, the deadlock between pricing, between the regulator and the distributor for electricity, how do you foresee it? What is your plan?
Firstly, we find it highly commendable that the electricity market has somewhat been liberalized, that the states are now able to play in all the value chain of electricity, and that the State Electricity Regulatory Commission has the power to regulate electricity in the state. But I think because this is something new, and so there has already been a mindset with the electricity distribution. All the regulator they respected and honor before now was NEC, So suddenly powers from NEC have been devolved to the states. So you now have the Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission and announcement on what we believe to be in the best interest of us after haven't done a very exhaustive analysis, even with engaging them and all that. So it's taken a while, but we believe that we will all get used to the fact that there's a new sheriff in town. You know, it is the Enugu State Electricity Regulatory that has the power under our law to regulate your activities and to be sure that the consumers are not exploited.
I guess we could take one or two more. I have understanding that we have some breather of some few minutes, and I see that.
Yes.
Oh, no, let's go the route where we're going.
So I was hoping we could touch on the issue of inflation, because the recent NBS figure did mention that Enugu has inflation rates in the country at 14.2%. That was and that the rate drop was over 5%. Remarkable on paper. In fact, I've asked some of the commissioners to put it through. But beyond the numbers, what's the kind of feedback you're getting honestly from the people? Is the cost really, as small businesses, the impact of reduced cost in the market?
So we dealt with the issue of poverty eradication in Enugu, you know. The root causes of the fragilities we observe in our communities or insecurity come from unemployment. So with respect to employment, we have about, from the government side of things, we have over 2,000 projects currently going on. So what we get is that, you know, we perhaps is in terms of artisans, they even charge more than Lagos, because everybody is constructively engaged doing one project. We're doing 260 smart schools in every ward. What that means is everybody in the community must be busy except you are lazy. And we're doing primary health care centers in the same ward, so you must find jobs somehow. And then of course we're not talking about 260 smart farm estates taking care the production level of our farmers. We even want to see that figure drop further, because we're aggressive with agriculture, getting inputs, we're mechanizing. By next year, we're going to be assessing our surplus, because we're not just going to be looking at as food security. We're going to be thinking about export. So how do we? Because think about it, 200 hectares. You had manual farming taking place before. You now have 200 hectares of land ring fenced, because you don't want the issue, the clashes between farmers and herders. You know, so the place is ring fenced, is access controlled. You have tractors. You already know we brought in over 100 tractors. Currently, there is a production of about 900 going on in the state. That we took delivery of 100. We insisted, because our total order is 1,000. You will have to produce from the state. And now they've built their plant and they're producing from the state. And by of businesses coming into Enugu, again, we've created that ease of doing business. So that number we're going to see drop even further by the time we begin to harvest in the next season.
All right, Your Excellency. 2 questions, final questions. The first one is, how expensive is transition going to be? I understand that you're going to have banners changed, the PDP logos will be changed to APC. We're seeing the flag behind you, that's probably new, right? So a lot of things are going to be spent. Could you specifically, from a business perspective, how expensive this has been so far and expected? Then, based on your current realignment with the, would you use that to address critical issues, specifically as regards security? You talked about power header crisis. How would this alignment address specific issues still facing the state? And the expert's question.
So for the first question, I think you already know about a state that is you know, and lean, you know, you have to make reference to Enugu. We squeeze penny from each naira to make sure that it gets to the people. It's not going to cost anything, maybe the cost of the flag, but I don't even think that government will pay for that because you have the party structure, the party has its own budget, you know, has ways of attracting funds, so that has nothing to do with expenditure. And with respect to security, you already know that we've been receiving a lot from the federal government. You remember that when we came in, we had to stop the long-held, the so-called sit-at-home, Monday's sit-at-home thing. We stopped it immediately we came, and that was thanks to the federal government because we had to mobilize federal security agencies to ensure that we end that. So what you're going to see is that stronger partnership, which was why I refer to it as alignment at scale, which is what it is. So
allow me to quickly follow up on security, because last year you inaugurated the Enugu State Security Trust Fund.
Yes.
The idea is to pool resources from everywhere for the safety of the average citizen. How much have you gotten thus far? Because at some point you're reporting 3 billion out of 20 billion.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of money. Just recently, we've just not had, because there are some drones that they ordered for which some of the parts had not arrived. So we're receiving vehicles, we're receiving drones, quite a lot of equipment from them. So we still expect to strengthen that. And there is, of course, an app that they have which also makes the receipt of funds sustainable, because every citizen can donate, whether it's 100 naira, 1,000 naira.
How do you track transfer?
We have a board of trustees that we have the chairman of the board of trustees who heads, so it operates outside government, so it's quite transparent. I think the whole system is very transparent.
On the 141 routes you flag.
Apologies, so that we don't just hold on 1 minute, because I just wanted to then we'll come to that. You set a trap right here in the government house. Yeah. The trap is a digital. You put in place a command and control center. I know you have powered vehicles, rapid response squad.
Yeah.
You also the command and control center. You're setting up the 3 billion optimized to 20 billion in trust fund. How much? What are the figures in terms of the crime? How much of the thieves, the criminals, have you been able to catch that night? Simon Ekpa's prosecution in Finland helped the cause of security in Enugu State. And the good news is that there is an organization that gave out a report to say that Enugu State is the safest in the Southeast. How much of the trap to criminals?
I dare say it's not just in the Southeast. I don't think you have any state as safe as this state, because we have reduced crime by over 80% reduction. We have also built the capacity to track criminals, to be able to capture them, to be able to know where they are once they commit crime. And so we have a line of sight what is going on in the entire state, not just the city. So if you walk just across this building, command and control center, you'll be able to view of what is going on, not just in the city, but across our state. So we have cameras in our rural areas that help us track people. Even so, some of these cameras, the cameras have thermal and AI capability. So what it means, even at night, we're able to identify these guys in the bush. We'll see them, we're able to track them and capture them. So we cannot claim that we do not have breaches every now and again. But what we claim is that we have the capacity to be able to track these criminals and bring them to justice.
So what's this Simon Ekpam, how has it...
So again, it's almost like taking out the oxygen from these guys, right? Because he was largely linked to funding of criminals. I'm sure that if you followed the case, that was very well established, and that's why he's somewhere in jail now. And so that obviously on these tensions, this siege thing, that, you know, because he was basically the oxygen.
Amici, your questions?
Yes. Now, moral for integrated.
Yes.
The start of 90-day time frame you gave. Many are wondering, 90 days has come and gone, and what's the progress?
So the thing with the road thing is, once there is a strong, I think we flagged up those roads in or so, right? And we had wanted to achieve that before the rain sets in, which is that timeline. But the minute we got caught in the rain, we had to. Because anything you do during the rainy season will be suboptimal. You're going to have to repeat it if you continue. Slow down, because we don't want the contractors to continue because of the rains. So now that the rains are, you know, drying up, to go back and have that done before.
All right. I think we've done quite a good job in a little out of time. You're not an engineer. You're not a professor of physics, are you?
No, one thing you can take for granted is our prudence.
Okay.
That's something we're known for. And the fact that we were proud to say, look, you have a businessman as governor, what do you expect?
Yeah.
We have to get the best value from every deal we make.
All right. We're just only out of time, but the cameras are here. The people of Enugu State are just... And I'd like you to sign off in this tone. Would there be any regret of today cost you your re-election?
Again, for me, what would constitute a regret would be if we seize the pace, or if we slow the pace of development that is good in Enugu State. As you already know, the profile of Enugu is rising. We're bringing Enugu back to her preeminent position. As you know, this was where it all started. This was the hub of economic development in this country, even before amalgamation, right? And we, you know, so we're not just another state, we're Enugu State. So we're going to continue on that trajectory, and as long as we continue without slow, we accelerate the pace, the people at the end of the day would have to make their choice in terms of whether they mandate or not, but it will be without regrets.
Governor Peter Mbah, Governor of Enugu State, thank you so much for this 2 hours of engagement with the and I must sincerely thank my colleagues, Nathan Yogutoye of Television Continent, Natalie Yoku of Afia TV, Amechi Anakwe of AIT, and Nigerian wife, Mbah Ekpeyang of Arise Television. I'm sure Akimale of Channels Television, and that's been it with the media chat with the Executive Governor of Enugu State. Thank you so much, everyone, for keeping tabs with us. And that's it from the Southeastern. Bye for now, everyone.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Totally.
Thank you.
Can we take a family photo? Family photo. Did I hear my family photo? Yes. I wanted to tell you something. Now I have a chance to see you. Maybe later. Thank you.
That was the Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah addressing the media following his defection from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressive Congress, a major political shift that's expected to reshape the dynamics of the Southeast ahead of the upcoming elections.